on a Friday.
Yes, yes. All right. Well, welcome everybody. This is one of our monthly habit change webinars that Jeff and I have been doing, and this one is on goal setting. And I think you guys are going to enjoy our take on it because it's a little bit different and it's constructed within a model that we have. My name is Chris Coward, and I am one of the co-creators with Jeff of the Habit Change Coach Training Program and have been coaching for a long time, and also have an executive coach leadership development practice, as well as run the coaching services for a company called Apollo Health, which is focused on brain health, basically. And I'll just turn over to Jeff to introduce himself.
Yeah, so most of my days these days are spent with leadership development, working with senior leaders, and both sort of in an individual basis and a team basis, and doing consulting work. So definitely habits, different types of habits these days. Occasionally health habits creep in there as well. And as Chris said, we started this venture like 2006. I think Chris came on in 2007, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are, we're still going. It turns out the desire to understand and be skillful at changing habits, there's still a need out there. So look, it just brings me joy to be able to every day, if I can just kind of help one person, then I'm all in. So I appreciate the two of you showing up and holding the space today. I'm hoping one of you feels courageous enough, because I will need a volunteer at some point. So just keep that in the back of your mind. But yeah, so
Yeah.
for me.
Great. And Frank has been on a few of our monthly calls, and Barbara, I think this is your first. And Frank probably has noticed that each month Jeff and I kind of alternate on who does the heavy lifting with the presentation, and it's Jeff's turn. So I'm going to let him just dive in to the material, and I'll add color commentary as needed. And feel free, both of you guys, to ask questions, put things in the chat, and let this be interactive for you today.
So what I'm going to do is we're going to do an overview of what we call barriers to change, right? So what gets in the way when we try to create change, and then we're going to dive in, as Chris said, to one of those barriers, which is goal setting. But I know you're both on mute, which is the right thing to do right now, except that I'm about to start off by asking you to engage for a minute. So I want you to think about the last time that you tried to create some new behavior. So either tried to stop doing a behavior or tried to start a new behavior, and you were unsuccessful. I'm not going to ask you what the behavior was, but I'm going to ask you what it was that got in your way. So if you could think about that, and then whenever you're prepared, if you could kind of unmute yourself and then just share, and Chris will ask you to engage as well. What was it that sort of got in your way as you might even made some progress initially and then maybe found that it sort of backslid. So Frank, Barbara, Chris, I'm gonna write this down, and this is my prompt. Hopefully it will feed into the theory that I want to try to share next. Barbara, looks like you're ready.
Sure. So I noticed yesterday, as I was sitting on the couch and not doing the thing that I wanted to do, that I'm feeling a strong sense of, I need a break. I just want to sit here.
So that's great. So let me ask you, actually. So then you took a break, and then did you do what you needed to do?
I did not.
Okay. And so at the end of, say, the day,
Mhm.
I'm successful with what you attempted to do that day, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then just really quickly, can you tell me what feeling showed up for you after the fact? Like when you, either actually, quite frankly, Robert, either in that initial sort of struggle or later when you reflected where you hadn't done what you wanted to do?
Mm, so initially, I think it was, well, it would be great if I could just get up and do that thing now, but I I'm just really feeling tired.
Yeah.
And later, um, I didn't reflect on it too much, honestly.
Okay. So let me, and this is great. I really appreciate this. And let me just ask you one other question. If you were to do it, say tomorrow, again, I assume a weekend is a okay time. And is there any, and let's say you got adequate sleep, is there anything else that you would imagine getting in your way?
Um, that seems to be the main thing, is if I'm feeling that I just want to rest a little.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Um, all right. I may come back to you with that rest thing, but for now, I'll switch to Frank if he's ready. Thank you, Barbara. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Frank, can you mind chiming in here?
Sure. Well, when I try to do something, one thing I feel is I always don't know if I have if I don't know if I'm doing it correctly, or I feel like I'm always trying to pour more into learning to do it without actually getting anything done, even though I know it'd be better to do something not perfectly, but it ends up than I am doing nothing at all.
Yeah, yeah, got it. Yeah. So it's that sort of perfectionistic mindset, right? Like if you can't go all in, then it's sort of like you don't even feel like it's worth the time or effort. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much, Chris. About you, anything?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I'm thinking of something where I was like wanting to go whole hog and consistent and follow the habit, and finding that I wasn't upholding it because something else that I also cared about. I was going towards that, and so it's like, yeah, I want to do this instead, and for my reasons that I had. And probably the feeling when I did that, because I just knew I wasn't honoring this other commitment I made, was I was pissed off at myself, because I thought I this is, I'm making this choice and it's not the one that's honoring what I want to do.
that's great. Thank you very much. So for me, it was quite frankly, I wasn't willing at that moment to make the sacrifice, to do what I wanted to do. And so, so this is great. The background of this is that so in some ways, I guess, depending on how you define it, I've been helping people change habits for 36 years. And over time, as we were kind of developing the model, was the work that we do, obviously, is helping people change habits. And, so really forcing myself to look at well, what gets in the way? Like, why can't we just change our habits? If we want to do something, why don't we just do it? And what through just kind of through experience, it basically 7 buckets showed up, right? And so then initially it was 5, and then over time it was like, oh wait, there's sort of 2 more. And what we would do is anytime that Chris and I would do a workshop or we would do a training, I would always ask, what I just asked everybody here, and then and then invariably we would be able to put it in these, buckets. And so what I want to do is I want to share what those buckets are, and recognize there's actually part of the model is then once you identify what the barrier is, like the solution is right there. Like the solution is actually quite simple once you get clear what the barrier is. And then our coaches that work with folks around habit change, like we train them to figure out what's the barrier, and then we teach them sort of what to do next. But before I go there, I want to spend a couple minutes, Frank and Barbara and Chris and others, just others like those that are like emotionally here but not physically here.
Yeah.
On the recording. I want you to sort of appreciate kind of what happens when we try to change behavior, right? And I'll give you sort of an example. Let's say someone is trying to, I don't want to say lose 20 pounds, right? And so, kind of what are the two big habit areas that they look at: exercise and what they put into their body, right? Eat and drink, right? And so let's say that they're 50 pounds overweight, right? And they've kind of been overweight for, say, most of their adult life, but they're just trying to lose 20 pounds. And so we all know what happens, right? So they, for whatever reason, it's January 1st, or they went to their doctor, or the scale like went to a particular place that it hadn't gone before, or they could no longer even fit into the new clothes that they bought that were like the bigger size clothes. For whatever reason, like they had this desire, right, for a different outcome, right? And so, for that minute, quite frankly, it's usually about a week or two, but there's a motivation to do something different. So they head out and they, begin to eat different, or, and they start exercising. And then what happens, first of all, what they usually do is if their baseline is I haven't exercised for 3 years, and I try to make good choices, but I don't really put any limits on what I eat. And then they try to go to exercising 3 days a week, or, really doing kind of eating how they should. That's guaranteed failure, right? Because it's such a huge jump. But the piece I really want to share with you that I think that might be new way of thinking for you is that, there's this sort of myth, right, that our behavior produces results, right? So we behave in ways that then produce results. I eat whatever I want and I don't exercise and I gain weight. Now, obviously, when it's surface, like it's hard to argue. But the idea here is that there's actually something else that feeds into the behavior that then produces results, meaning that we behave in ways based on this something else, right? So our behavior is sort of automatic. It's habits. We're in that habit of eating whatever we want, or we're in the habit of eating ice cream before we go to bed, or we're in the habit of like not exercising, or whatever it is. The reason we do that is because something else, and that something else is called self-image, right? So how we see ourselves, the sum total of all our thoughts and all our images, that feeds into our behavior, that feeds into the result. So here's an example. So we'll call this person John, right, who's trying to lose weight. So John, say, shops at the Tall and Big store. He knows the associate, he's really good, good relationship with the sales guy that always, sells him the clothes. John grew up, where, you don't leave any food on your plate. There's always dessert. John hangs out with his buddies, like every Friday they go out and they just like drink all this beer. John, gets on the scale and always expects it to be, more than it, he wants it to be. There's a system of how John sees himself. There's not just how he sees himself, his thoughts, his feelings, and his behaviors, going to the Tom Big store, going out with his friends, eating everything on his plate, all of this is what leads him to the behavior that produces a result. So when John says, I'm going to lose weight, he is challenging that entire system, right? Like that whole system that makes up how he sees himself. So sure, he can be successful briefly while he's, quite frankly, thinking about it, while he's conscious of it. But what inevitably is going to happen when you challenge the system of how you see yourself is the ego is going to resist the change. In fact, what it's probably going to do is it's like a rubber band that's been pulled back, right? And then you finally release the rubber band and you end up overshooting. In other words, you end up not only, in this case, regain the weight, but you actually gain a little bit more just in case you're trying to do that again, right? We act in ways that are consistent with our self-image. And we will not create sustainable change until we change the way we see ourselves. And there's only two ways of doing that. One way is you actually go head on and challenge the thoughts and images of how you see yourself, which is, we'll save that for another time. And the other way is to do it externally through these very small steps that Chris talked about last month, right? But in order to be successful around the small steps, which, by the way, you eventually you still need to change self-image, but you can get there initially by taking these small steps. In order to do that, you need to set really clearly defined goals. So here are the 7 barriers to change. I'm going to share those with you. Then I want to do a coaching demo around goal setting. And then at the end of the demo, we'll process the coaching. And then I'll talk a little bit more about what happened, but then also about goal setting. So the hope is that when you finish today, you will have a little bit more insight into how to set a goal that could help begin the path of changing self-image so that you act in ways that's consistent with a healthier self-image or a self-image aligned with what the goal is that you're trying to achieve. And then you get the different results that you're trying to get. So one is lack of information, right? So do I have the information necessary to create the change I'm trying to create? And a good example of that is going back in sort of like 2008. I was, trying to lose, I don't know, 10 pounds or something. And I would be going hard out on the treadmill for 2 hours. Like I'd be, it wasn't a workout unless I was going really hard and I was sweating and it wasn't happening. It was frustrating because I was doing this for months and I was kind of at standstill or maybe even kind of gaining, and it wasn't like my eating habits changed, right? So if I'm not eating differently and I'm working out that hard, what's wrong with that picture, right? I mean, calories in, calories out, right? And through this work that Chris and I were doing, we had experts in these different habit areas come and speak to our participants, people going through our program. And so this expert in exercise physiology came in and he said something and a light bulb went off, right? He said that, you can overexert yourself and then the body releases cortisol. You're basically creating stress for your body, and then your body stores, right? The calories I'm taking in stores it as fat to sort of protect itself for next time. And so what happened was I was actually working too hard. I was working against myself. So I didn't have the accurate information necessary, right, to make the right decisions in terms of what were the steps I was going to take to create the change. The second one, the one that we're going to dive a little bit more into today, is goal setting, right? So the example of goal setting is that, do I make, so I'll put it this way, and then I'll talk more about it after the demo. There's aspirational goals, and then what I'll say, there's the goals of which you will hold yourself accountable for. So oftentimes when Chris and I say, okay, what's your goal? And, and when I say goal, in this case, I don't mean like what's your end outcome you want, like I want to lose 50 pounds. My goal is, I would really like to work out 5 days a week and, do intermittent fasting. And I'm like, that's great. How many times do you work out now? So like my earlier example, I haven't worked out in 3 years. Okay. And are you doing intermittent fasting now? No. Are you doing any kind of restriction about when you eat? No. Okay. So we'll call that an aspirational goal. And so once we do the demo and then we process it, we'll talk about like what's more of a goal that you will actually hold yourself accountable for, a goal for which you cannot fail unless you really try. That would be something to sort of keep in mind, right? Like if there's anything you write down today, it's set a goal for which I can't fail unless I try, right? Versus the formula that we usually do, which is, I think I can do this, I'm going to try to make this goal happen. The problem with that is as soon as you fail, the whole system collapses and you give up the whole thing. The third thing is a lack of motivation. So I had mentioned to you, my thing was I wasn't willing to make the sacrifices. In some ways, Chris's example, I feel like was two of our barriers to change. One was a lack of motivation. She wanted to do something else instead, right? So she wasn't willing to make the sacrifice necessary. But the other thing is that my next one, which is a values conflict, right? Yeah. So often when I hear I felt angry, right, which is what she said, I hear values conflict. In other words, you have two different values. Like one might be the value of socializing, having fun, right, being with the group, which is I predicted, and I think I might.
He knows me. I didn't give the example, but I guess I didn't have to.
Right, and the other one was sort of making healthy choices around like ingestion and things like that, or doing something else, right? And so Chris's higher value was having fun with her community, right? And so she gave up the other thing that she wanted because it was lower value. Just to give you a little insight about how change works in our process of habit change and how easy this can be. As a coach, when I hear somebody, say, I tried to do this and I failed, and I say, well, why did you fail? And they say, well, because I did this too. My daughter's, had her thing and I wanted to go to that and whatever. My response to that, my first response is, congratulations. And they say, for what? I'm saying for failing to do what you set out to do. And they look at me in this weird look. And I say, because you honored a higher value. Clearly family was really important, right? And so ultimately that's what's going to happen. If we feel angry or frustrated in trying to achieve something, chances are it's because it's butting up against a higher value. And so the simple way around that is, how can you have both, right? And then suddenly it's not like an either or, it's maybe I could do it differently in this way and still, honor this other thing. That's 4. A fifth one is a lack of external resources and support. So Barbara you had mentioned, Barbara, that, you were tired, right? And so the thing I think about is whatever it is that is the thing that you're wanting to do or needing to do, quite frankly, the system that you have in place, the structures of making sure you're getting adequate sleep, good, work, if it's work related, it feels like it's workish. Life balance isn't there. And, with your commitments with the board and with your, work commitments and your business and everything else you have going on, it's exhausting, right? And so, when you think about external resources and support, do you have the right people and support around you to make sure that you can be successful, right? So for example, if the gym is 45 minutes away, like that might be difficult in terms of going to the gym. Almost done here. Another one is medical or psychological barriers, right? And so, medical, there could be medical conditions that sort of get in the way, and it's sort of like its own class. But, from a psychological perspective, right? So, Frank, when you had, spoke and shared, about, kind of this thing about, wanting to do sort of perfectly or really well. And, because you felt like you couldn't, it sort of like kept you from kind of really even starting the process, right? So, there's going to be like sort of a psychological kind of piece, around that, so that when you get unhooked from that, then it helps you make small steps and then ultimately be successful. And then finally, the last one is lack of confidence, which I also thought about you, Frank, around the thing that you had presented. Sometimes we lack confidence. One of the ways that I see that showing up, and this is sort of what made me think about this also, Frank, with you, is that we do all these other things around it. Like I see this a lot with new coaches. So Chris and I both have in the past taught coaches how to build their business. And what I see a lot with new coaches who are trying to build their business is they do everything but ask for the business, right? Like, give out the free sample sessions. They're, do a website that they love. They'll do some business cards to create the logo. Then like they'll take another certification course, and then they'll take another certification, and they'll like try to get all this pedigree together and this, website stuff, all because quite frankly, they're lacking confidence. And this is a way they're trying to, gain confidence. All right, so let me pause. I've been talking at you for a very long time. Before we go into a demo around goal setting, I want to just check in and see if anybody has any thoughts, questions, or comments, including you, Chris, for anything we've talked about so far.
Yeah, and just I don't know if you guys can see the chat, but I wrote them all out just as a headliner for each of the 7, because I know it's hard to keep up and track all this. So yeah, and what you said about my values conflict is what I was thinking too, and my activity was exercise and wanting to do it, and I was sometimes just picking. There's a bunch of things. This is a resource thing too, picking the wrong time of day, that it would conflict with happy hour, with my friends. And then that one, and that's an important thing for me too. So it wasn't like, these were 2 values that on the surface were fine. Important to my mental health to be social and have fun with my friends. That's a big thing. But really wanting both. And I've since gotten better at this. But it can show up in a bunch of different ways for me.
That's great. Barbara, Frank, any comments, either kind of relating a little bit to your own situation or anything else about what I talked about so far? You don't have to, but I am going to ask for a demo soon. Okay, Barbara, does it make sense, everybody? Barbara, did you have a comment?
Go through it a little bit.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I think I need to kind of go through it a little bit and see.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Okay, so Barbara, Frank, are either one of you willing to participate in a coaching demonstration using? So what we'd be doing is we'd be setting goals around what you're trying to achieve.
I can if Frank doesn't want to.
Thank you, Barbara. Appreciate it. Okay, so let's start with first, without permission to coach you.
Yes.
Thanks. And feel free to, you know,
Jeff, how much time do you want for this?
12 minutes.
Okay. Do you need anything from me?
No, I should be good. I have my.
Okay. Okay, got it.
So, Barbara, I guess let me just ask, like, what is it that what's the goal that you're trying to achieve? And I guess first, what's the outcome goal that you're trying to achieve?
Yeah. So the outcome goal is losing the weight I put on during COVID.
The COVID weight. Yeah, the infamous COVID weight.
Yes. And the very loose goals that I had set were exercising more and being a little more careful about what I'm eating.
You came primed with a perfect example, right? So thank you. And you already clearly have the insight about, right, the slot, the goals, right? Like the looseness, right, of the goals.
Yeah.
So let me ask you first, what's important to you about losing the COVID weight?
I'm not sure I feel super strong about it. So
That's so the motivation piece, right? Right. So am I hearing you like you might be kind of okay not losing the weight?
kind of. So I think part of my self-image is that I'm strong, and that might actually be more important than the weight. Since I have not been doing much of a workout, I don't have the strength that I used to have. So, so that would probably be more of a motivator than just weight itself. But also, you know, I don't want to have to buy new clothes. I want to be able to fit in my old clothes. So that's a motivator. I liked the clothes I had when I, you know, before I got pregnant. So that was a while ago, but that's not a realistic weight goal. So
Is it an aspirational goal?
maybe, yeah, maybe down the road.
Let's get to the first landing, and then we can see what that next mountain looks like if we even want to look at it or climb it.
Right.
Fair enough. Okay. And what's important about being strong?
That's part of that self-image. Just always been the one who, like, if you need to move furniture, I can come help you move furniture. Or, you know, I can replace the water bottle. I can, you know, do all the things because I have, you know, I naturally have more arm strength than a lot of women. So it's been part of my identity to be, you know, the strong person.
That's great. And so I almost hear, and tell me, Barbara, if this works for you, like, what if the goal that we figure out together is a goal towards gaining strength, and as a consequence, not as a focus, but as a nice outcome consequence, byproduct, you lose the weight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that feel like aligned with something that's motivating for you?
Yeah. And I actually, I changed my phone picture some time ago when I've had this goal for a little while now.
Can't wait.
So you probably can't really see it.
Yeah.
But
just
it's so that's me.
Pull back a little bit.
Well,
Okay.
see, there's my face in a tree. I like to climb trees.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
So strength is a plus when climbing trees because you know, I want to have the strength going up and going down.
That's great. I love it. And I'm guessing you have trees in your backyard or around you near your house?
I don't have any climbable trees in the yard, but there's a park nearby that has some.
Okay, that's great. So if, before we get into the goals, Barbara, could you first give me a vision, and, you know, a time, right? Like a vision and when that vision would realistically be fulfilled.
You know, I have a hard time with that because this strength has been somewhat natural. I've never ever had a workout routine. I just was strong.
That's interesting.
So, you know, like in high school, I could bench 150, and it was like once a week we spent 10 minutes with the weights, and that was it. And you know, I never had a workout. So I don't have any real good sense of how to set a goal around this.
Do you have exercise equipment in the house that you've used?
Yeah, we have some hand weights, free weights.
And you've used them?
Very limited way, but yeah.
So there's motivation around regaining some strength, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a desire, but not a leading desire, to lose weight, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so in front of us, we've got, you know, your experience, your self-image, quite frankly, is that you're naturally strong, right? And you've been that way. You're kind of aware, though, that that might be slipping a little bit, right? You're aware that you gained some weight from during the COVID time. So let me just ask point blank, what is it that you want to do and would be willing to commit to doing? And then we can try to unpack that and create.
Yeah. So what I had in mind was a daily walk, and you know, I've been doing it maybe 2 or 3 times a week.
Okay.
And I'd like to increase that to daily, and then a little stretch and strength routine, you know, maybe 20 minutes 3 times a week or something like that.
Okay, that's great. And how long are your walks typically?
Mile and a half.
Okay.
To that tree that I can climb.
Oh, nice. You know, we're going to be climbing that tree at some point. Okay, so I'm thinking the combination of what we did last month with small steps and goal setting here. I guess I'll just ask the question: what is a realistic goal that you could commit to? And I'm going to suggest a time period, and then you can push back ahead or more, you know, one way or the other on the time, for 30 days, for 4 weeks.
30 days. So, I mean, I think 5 miles a week is realistic.
Love the way you're doing that. Yeah.
I'm currently probably doing 3 ish.
Yeah.
Although I did 3 last weekend just on a hike, but
but that was an unusual. Yeah. Let me just say real quick, I love the way you framed this, and I'm really big, you know, on framing goals for the week, you know, that converts into daily behaviors. But because on Monday, right, it incentivizes you, like, maybe I'm gonna go 2 miles today because now I'm only got 3 left, right? You know, but come Sunday, you know, if you didn't do it, you still, you know, you can still complete the goal. That is a beautiful, beautiful way to do this. right, is you set a target goal for the week, so that you can be incentivized early in the week, get it out of the way. What usually happens, real quick, by the way, is eventually what happens is we get to say Sunday and it's like, shoot, I've got to walk, 4 miles or something. And you do, right? Because you get it in, right? And then after that, like you become more motivated to get it done early in the week, right? And then you get it done early in the week and you're like, I'm going to keep going, right? Like I'm going to do 7 miles. Like your success breeds success, right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So 5 miles a week, walking, that's pretty clear. And what about the daily routine, like stretching?
Yeah. That one I have a harder time with because I don't know how to get a hook to to get myself to do it.
Have you done it ever?
Not more than like a week maybe at a time.
Okay. So I I'm like, do I be direct and ask you if this is okay, or do I just ask you? So let me start with asking you, like, what would you be truly motivated to do and committed to do that's not just because I'm asking you to make a commitment, right? But because it truly feels supportive of your ultimate goal. And good answers are anything to nothing, to, something that's, a little bit more than, like here and there kind of thing.
Yeah. So the only time actually I was successful at doing this was before my wedding. And my goal was to fit in my mom's wedding dress by the date of my wedding. So it was
Yes.
a pretty fixed thing. Yeah. And my mom had a certain waist size when she was 28 and I was getting married at 38. So so I had a real very clear target there.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the problem is I don't know how to measure it. Like how.
That's fair. I mean, because I hear two things. One is I hear I think the college clothes that you would love to fit back into, but like, the word unrealistic, right? And, like, you're not even 30, you're definitely not 28 and you're not 20, right? And so that's a visual, like, I feel like there's this tension to want to go there, but like, no, that's ridiculous. Like, let's stay, focused on.
So the thing that might be more useful is I'm turning 50 this year. And I know that, strength declines if you don't keep it up as you age. And like my grandmother used to work out with cans from her pantry, when she was in her 70s and 80s. Probably even in her 90s. And
Wow.
So, while I'm still approaching 50, to try to develop this habit that can take me to old age, and, like my mom in her 70s is still hauling water bottles around, just to have that, independence into old age, I guess, is the goal.
Fair enough. So you would love to create a habit that's different. It's almost like the age 50 thing is like, maybe I need to be thinking differently about, I've always been naturally strong, to I shift into a lifestyle that maintains my strength.
Yeah, right.
I need to be a little more active around that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the interest of time, would you be willing to commit to 3 times in this next month, like before like May 8th, to do 20 minutes of, routine? You can do weights, you can do stretching, you can do push-ups, you can do whatever in that 20 minutes, as long as you're doing movements. Are you willing to do that 3
Yes.
times? You could be done before mid next week, or you could be done, at the end of like a month.
Yeah.
Okay. And does that sit is right? Is that like, okay, I can do that and that would be good and I would feel good about doing that? Okay. All right. So the commitment is
Yeah.
5 miles um, a week for 4 weeks, and 3 times of 20 minutes of kind of routine, whatever you want to do, over the next month. Good enough. And then we're linking that to maintaining strength, almost celebrating 50. I invite you, when you do that, to think of the image of celebrating a healthy 50, right? And the smile, the beautiful smile that I see in your face now, I'm going to expect that that's going to show up when you make that linkage, when you are working, when you're getting ready to work out. All right. All right. And then is there anything you want from me in terms of accountability or celebration?
No, but I was just looking at my little, I have a little app here and it lets me put goals in.
That would be
So I
great.
think I'll use that as a tool for
That's
tracking.
great. So when I open this up for discussion, can you finish putting in your app now? So when we hang up in 10 minutes, you're there. Awesome. I think I can send you, I'm going to put my email address in the chat. I invite you, you don't have to, but I would love to hear from you, and particularly hear from you in 1 and or 2 moments, right? When you've achieved your 5, your 5 or 20 miles and your 3 times. That would be 1 time, just like, by the way, I met my goal. And then the other time, if you want, or it could be the only time if you want, is at the end of, like somewhere around May 8th.
Okay.
All right. And I'm putting my, you get my all right, well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Can we give a, I don't know, how can we celebrate you? Yeah, thank you.
The sound of 2 hands clapping.
Exactly.
That was beautiful, you guys. Yeah. Thank you, Barbara, for stepping into that. And
Yeah.
it's so real. And so how a lot of, everyone's got their own version of the COVID cushion that shows up.
So let's, Chris, why don't you take maybe just 3 minutes to maybe process that. And then I'm going to talk about kind of what we did around goal setting. And then I'm going to share one last piece before we close off.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll leave that part of it for you, Jeff, and talk about maybe some other aspects of the coaching that I heard, or would that be helpful, or?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And, and just whatever Barbara thought or what Frank thought.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, let's start with you guys. So Frank, you were an observer like me. What did you notice? Oh, I think you're muted. Hold on.
Still muted.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, trying to connect the goal with the values. Kind of just align that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And getting clearer, right? Because if we just jumped right in, might have been a disconnect.
Right. Great. Anything else, Frank?
Yeah, trying to really have a clear goal. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nice. Barbara, how was all that for you? Is there something that stood out for you that was particularly impactful? Oops, are we having yeah, you're muted, Barbara. Did you catch my question?
I did not. I was frozen for a second there.
Okay, I couldn't tell you're frozen. You're slightly moving and in your freeze. Was there something in the coaching that was particularly impactful for you?
I think really diving into the motivation and, not just taking weight loss as a goal, because that's more of a should for me than a real
Mm-hmm.
personal goal. So, yeah, that's useful to not base anything on that, because it's just not going to work.
Mm-hmm. I heard that too. Yeah.
Let me ask real quick, Barbara, do you feel confident about achieving this goal?
Yes.
Yeah, it felt like where you all landed was that place of, there was a head shift in what this needed to shift to be resonant and for you to have some motivation around and do it. And then also it turned into something manageable as
Yeah.
well. And the driver of perspective shift and how to look at it, turning 50 and all that kind of drove almost like a logical place to like, oh, this is what I'm going to do, that makes sense because now it all lines up.
Yeah.
That's what I was hearing. Yeah.
As I'm thinking about achieving the goal, one other barrier that I had is my phone battery was pretty much dead. So I couldn't have my little tracker thing while I was walking because the phone wouldn't stay on. So I got my battery replaced this week. So my phone will actually last for a walk so I'll be able to use the tracker again.
That is in the 7 barriers to change list up there, lack of external resources and support. Yeah. So
Got it.
You took care of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just in terms of some of the things I saw Jeff do, he asked that, which we often do in coaching, sort of what's important about this, like finding that first level, but he didn't stop there because he went a little bit farther with another layer of importance. So it's this way of not taking the first response because his sensing into that was that there was something even underneath that needed to be called out. And I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. Yeah, and Jeff knew, in this crunch of time, I think one of the important questions you asked Jeff was what would you be willing to do here and commit to? Because at the end of the day, he was trying to hone in on that. And after he got the context and the importance and all that, then it's like, well, wait a second, what are you willing to do? You have this natural strength that you've always had. And so that in itself it's kind of a new thing to be playing with this thing that you didn't have to ever try for. Yeah. Welcome to 50, by the way. I'm 6 years in, baby. I know about that stuff. One of the moments that I really loved that Jeff did was he kind of was vulnerable and let sort of his inner thinking out and sharing it with you when he said, gosh, I'm trying to think here, like, how direct should I be with you? And I just thought that was really cool. It's intimacy, it's trust building, and it's just being human with another human. So I just thought that was cool. And then Jeff, his style is very, he accesses intuition really well in coaching. And that came up too, just like noting your energy and what that would mean to where his questions were going to go and where he was going to help shift to. And then getting really granular on accountability with you. You were not, you're not going to slip away with a vague plan, not with him, not today anyway.
I do have to jump off because I have a 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'll say goodbye, just 2 seconds. What we did is realistic, evaluative, right? Action oriented and limited. right? And just like a SMART goal. And the last thing I'd say, Barbara, to think about a consequence if you don't do it. And here's a suggested consequence. You have to make up the time the following week for the 5 miles, right? So if you only did 3 miles, you have to do 7 miles the next week.
Okay.
All right. All right.
All right. Thanks, Barbara.
And thank you, everybody. Appreciate the time. It's great to see you all on a
Yeah.
Friday. Just got my second COVID shot, so.
He's still sitting.
All right.
All right. Bye, y'all. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. And thanks for
Bye.
whoever's going to watch this
Yeah.
later. Yeah.
All right. Take great care.
Take care.
Bye.